Hey there.
Hey, how are you?
Good. How you doing?
I'm good.
Maybe. Give me 1 second. This lighting is terrible. How's your day going?
It's good. How about yours?
It's going. It is going. Okay, let me just pull up your assessment. Is this your first time taking the assessment?
Yes.
Okay. Were your results surprising at all to you?
No. I don't know about. Well, Kendall had told me about the animals. The animals was surprising, but I don't really know what that means yet. So
Okay.
yeah, but as far as the information that came to me, no, it wasn't surprising.
Okay, sounds good. We're gonna dive into it. Alrighty, so this is your full assessment. What the DISC assessment is it's a behavioral assessment that kind of helps you figure out your communication style, your learning style, how you interact with different people. When it comes to communication, that could be personal environment, professional environment. And so the goal here is to figure out what your style is and then what we need to do to improve in that area, and then some things that you can do to get other people to get on board with how you are as a person, and then also being able to identify how other people are in certain situations.
Okay.
So we'll get started with the animals first. So what this is this is the overview. If you look at the colored graphs are going to be your natural style abilities, and then the gray bar is going to be your adaptive style. So what your natural style is, it's who you are on a regular basis. You're at home singing in the shower, very comfortable. You're not necessarily thinking about your actions before you do it. It's kind of just flowing. And then your adaptive style is how you are when you feel like you're being observed. So that is if you're in a work environment and maybe the CEO of the company is coming in town and you want to make sure your I's are dotted and your T's are crossed. You're in there doing everything that you wouldn't normally do on a normal day, just because you want to make sure that you present yourself in the best manner. So that's going to be your adaptive style. So our goal here is to figure out how we can close up some of these gaps between your natural style and your adaptive style so that you can make sure you're being your best self. Because if you think about, have you ever been in a relationship or a friendship or with family members and you felt like you couldn't be yourself?
Mm-hmm.
And how did that turn
out? Typically they end.
Yeah, so it's the same with our natural and adaptive style. If we're not operating at 100% our authentic self, it's going to take a lot of energy out of us, one, and two, it's going to cause a stressful situation because we're not operating in ourselves. And it is going to be that much harder for us to gain that success. Whatever success looks like for us, it's going to be that much harder to get to it because we're not operating in our natural style. So we're going to figure out some ways that we can close up those gaps. All right, so if we take a look at the first one, the D is going to be your lion. So lion or gorilla, sometimes we interchange those. But the D is going to be your lion. So lions are very assertive, very aggressive. High lions typically like a challenge. And then they're very get-it-done people, results-driven, task-oriented. I like to say the lion and the turtle are cousins because they're both task-oriented. So you're 42% lion in your natural style and adaptive style, which is good. You kind of don't change in a certain situation or an environment. And then we have your flamingo, which is the I. So flamingos are typically very sociable people. High flamingos typically have a fear of not being liked. So your flamingo is a little lower. Flamingos can walk into a room, talk to people, but because you're a low flamingo, I'm going to assume that you're not really a people person. Is that true?
Yes.
No, you don't like people. Like, I don't like people. Yeah, so then 39% flamingo. And then you have your chameleon, which is 77%. You're 77% chameleon. And chameleons, typically high chameleons have a fear of loss of stability. And then also chameleons are they're people oriented. However, they love working in teams. They're very supportive people. You can't really tell their emotions based off of, you know, how they present themselves. And then chameleons also within a work environment, they love structure and, you know, working with different people. Would you say that's you, or you
Yes,
prefer to
to
be on a
every
team versus doing something yourself?
well, I'm changing because I know that it requires me to work on a team, but before I was like that. I would prefer to work alone. But the rest of what you said as far as chameleon, that's definitely me.
Gotcha. Okay. And so then we have the turtle, which is going to be the C. Turtles are very organized, detail-oriented, very structured people, very analytical, methodical, research-driven. Typically, high turtles have a fear of making a mistake. So have you ever been in a situation where you find yourself taking 3 hours that for a task that should take an hour because you're so focused on if it's perfect or if
Yeah.
it's wrong, or yep. So typically high turtles have that. And so our goal here is to figure out how we can just increase our sense of urgency and still feel okay with the work that we produce.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
All right. So these are the animals. Again, the D is going to be your lion. The I is going to be your flamingo. The S is going to be your chameleon. And then the C is going to be your turtle.
Okay.
All right. And do you have any questions about these before we move on?
Mm-mm.
Okay. All right. So then we're going to go down to, we're going to go over your highest one, which is your turtle. Okay, so if we go to this page, high turtles tend to adhere to rules, standards, procedures, and protocols set by those in authority whom they respect. They like things to be done the right way according to the operating manual. Rules are made to be followed is an appropriate model for those with higher turtle scores. They have some of the highest quality control interests of any of the styles and frequently wish others would do the same. So if we take a look down here at your results for your turtle, if you're looking at these bullet points right here, which of these would you say are exactly like you, if not all of them?
Let me make my screen bigger. Hold on one second.
Okay.
Okay. The first one and third one, definitely. The second to last, you are very systematic. Like, yeah, probably all of them except for the second one. I don't mind change. I love consistency though, but I don't mind. I don't buck up against it. But you wanted to know which one was the top one?
Or just all of them. So typically,
Oh yeah.
so all of these bullet points based off of your score, they pull ones that are typically like you. So
Mm-hmm.
the goal here is to figure out which ones you say are like you, and then the ones that aren't, figure out if it's situational. So for instance, the second one you said is kind of not like you because you like change. But if we think about, so it says you're most likely seen as being more resistant to change than others. So if we think about a work environment, and so if you look at the third one, it says you like a work environment that is precise, structured, and orderly. So if we think about a work environment, and maybe, you know, the higher ups are looking to change the structure of, or change the way something is structured. So what do you do for work?
The coaching and speaking.
Coaching and speaking. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say you have a speaking engagement, and the school that you're speaking at, they have a schedule of what they want you to do. So maybe from 10 to 1, you're going to be working on this, from 2 to 3, lunch, and then from 2 to 3 is this, and then 4 to 5 is this. So you've prepared this whole day for your students that you're talking to, and then you get there and they're like, oh wait, we need to switch up this, we need to do that, we need to do that, and you're kind of like, I prepared for this. So you're a little bit resistant to the change versus it being like, okay, I can jump in and do it. So if you think of situations like that, are you more likely to be resistant in that type of area.
Yeah, in that situation, yeah.
Yeah. So some of these are just situational, but the goal is to identify it. That way we can be prepared for anything. So if you do have a speaking engagement and they tell you this day, hey, we have 100 students, and a lot of 70% of them are struggling with self-esteem, or 70% of them are struggling with test taking, and you go in there, you come the day of and you're prepared to speak about test taking or anxiety or something like that, and then the day of they hit you and say, hey, well, we have you speaking to another group of students and we need you to talk about this. It's kind of like, okay, I'm ready. I'm kind of just ready for anything. So the goal is to figure out how we can just prepare more for some of these things.
Okay.
All right. Any questions about this page?
No.
Okay. All right. So then we're going to go down to page 13. So this one is ideas for being more effective. So what they did was pull out based off of your score. So based off of your lion, flamingo, chameleon, and turtle, they pulled these out. So these are ways that you can be more effective in each one of your animal areas. And so what this is going to do is to help you keep that balance of what we talked about when it comes to closing up those gaps between the natural and the adaptive style. This is going to help you in that area. So what I normally have people do is go through these and then jot down next to it something that you can do in that area to be more effective. So we'll go over a few of them and then we can kind of figure it out together. So the first one, work assignments of high precision and accuracy to capitalize on your high detail orientation. So because you're such a high turtle, you're very detail oriented. Do you look at things like step by step, and do you say, okay, this is that? Do you
Yeah, step by step. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So this is basically saying making sure you keep working on things that require you to have that high detail involved in it. Okay. When it comes to, because you do coaching and speaking, when it comes to sending out like proposals or putting together like slide decks, if you use those, you do those yourself?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So then the next one, an environment with high quality control systems and processes. Do you work full time at all, or you just do coaching and speaking full time?
Coaching and speaking full time.
Okay. Working with others who have a high level of quality orientation. So basically not putting yourself in a situation to where you're working with other people who might be like 99% lion, and then you have all lions on your team, because then you're the only person who has that attention to detail attribute, especially if they're lower turtle. So this is basically saying making sure that you have other people who like high quality control on your team. That way you don't get overwhelmed.
Yeah. Okay.
And this is one that we kind of talked about at the beginning, having an increased sense of urgency in making decisions, to be able to shut the data gate and make a decision based on the information currently available. So have you ever found yourself in a situation where you have to make a decision very quickly and you're not able to because you're thinking about the what ifs or the detail side of it?
Excuse me. Yes. Absolutely.
Okay. So in this instance, and I always tell people there's no good or bad, there's no right or wrong when it comes to the animals is just who we are. So in a situation like this where you're not finding yourself having an increased sense of urgency, one thing that you want to do is we know that lions have a high sense of urgency. So you're 42% lion. So really thinking about something that you can do in that area to increase your lion in that 42%. So operating at 100% of that 42% lion. That makes sense? Okay. So you want to just kind of let go of the idea of having to be perfect and everything having to be right. One thing that I had to do, because I had a high turtle score as well, is I realized it was taking me, like if I'm putting together a newsletter or something, it would take me a few hours to do a very short newsletter. And it's because I was going through it, making sure all the links worked correctly, making sure there was no grammatical errors, thinking about, oh my God, if somebody reads this, are they going to get something from it? Does this make sense? Does this do that? And I find myself getting very overwhelmed because it's like, this should not take me 3 hours to do it. It literally should take 20 to 30 minutes. So what I had to do was really just get it all done, read through it once or twice, and then just send it out. If a mistake happens, cool, look at it, make sure it doesn't happen the next time. So really gradually getting that sense of urgency, especially when it comes to decision making and tasks, because that'll help you be more effective in that area.
Okay.
All right. And then job descriptions that are presented clearly and with no ambiguities, and preferably in writing. So you may be negotiating for a speaking engagement that you have, and maybe someone comes to you and it's not really in an orderly form. Maybe this right here, how do you do your bookings? Do you have like a WooFoo form on your site, or do you have them email you, or how do you do that?
It's through my website.
Okay, cool. Yep. So just having that form where if someone says, hey, I need you to speak here, you're just directing them to your website. That way you still have your head in order and everything is in proper order and it's not jumbled all over the place. So that's what's going to help you succeed, mostly because you're a very data-driven, detail-oriented person. Being more confident in your own decision-making ability. I was about to say, are you indecisive, like when it comes to stuff, or do you overthink?
Definitely overthink, indecisive. I'll send it to my husband, I'll send it to a friend, ask them what they think, and that just takes up so much time. So yeah.
Yep. And I was very big on that, overthinking and asking everybody else's opinion. In this case, something you can jot down next to this, being more confident in your own decision-making ability. Something you can jot down next to it is like a 1 to 2 rule. So whether that's like 1 to 2 minutes, 1 to 2 hours, 1 to 2 days, figuring out how fast you need to make a decision. So if someone comes to you and says, what are the topics that you normally speak on?
Managing motherhood and pursuing your own dreams. So like time management, organization, planning, stuff like that.
Okay. So if someone comes to you and says, hey, I want you to talk about, do you ever talk about like relationships or marriage?
Yeah, sometimes. Yeah.
But your targets are like time management, motherhood, and stuff like that.
Yeah, stuff with motherhood. We talk about relationships though, because sometimes you could put so much into your kids that you don't cultivate other relationships. So I talk about relationships too.
Okay, so let's say someone reaches out to you and says, I want you to come speak at this marriage retreat. And you don't necessarily talk about managing marriage. You're married, but that's not necessarily your niche. So you're thinking about it and you're like, oh my gosh, should I do it? Should I not do it? Like, comparing yourself to other relationship experts or, whoever else. And it's taking you forever to make a decision. In that instance, you could say, okay, in 1 to 2 hours, I'll make a decision. Either I'm going to do it or I'm not going to do it. What's the pros and cons? And not overthinking it so much to where it's like, oh, well, if I do it, will people get information from it? My whole thing is every time when you do decide to do something, at least one person will take something from what you do. So not overthinking if you're going to serve the entire room or the entire retreat of who's going to be there. So really just jotting down next to that could be a 1 to 2 decision-making process. And then you figure out if you can make a decision quickly in 1 to 2 minutes. It's like, do I want Longhorn or do I want Outback? 1 to 2 minutes. It doesn't matter. Wherever I eat at, I'm still going to eat. So 1 to 2 minutes, 1 to 2 hours, 1 to 2 days.
That's a good start.
Situation. And then options for making your own changes to certain methods or procedures to increase efficiency. So this may be you doing an audit of how you do speaking engagement intakes or how you interact on social media, like social media schedule, when you answer emails, basically time management, which you're great at. So this is just saying, make sure you make it available for you to be able to maneuver your own schedule so that you increase your efficiency. And then sufficient time to consider alternatives prior to making changes. And this kind of goes back to the previous page where it talked about being resistant to change. So this is just saying that because you're a high turtle, and you know that you haven't developed necessarily the high sense of urgency yet, giving yourself enough time so that you don't get overwhelmed or feel like you're being pressured in a situation, giving yourself enough time to consider, alternatives before you actually jump in to do something or to change something.
Okay.
All right. So in your own time, you can kind of go back through these and then just jot down one thing that you can do to be more effective in that area.
Okay.
And then we go down to page 15. So this page is all about your strengths. I always tell people this is like a golden page because a lot of times we can operate in our weaknesses, start feeling defeated or feeling like things aren't going well. But if we really just look at this page and see what our strengths are, and we start doubling down on our strengths and make sure we're operating in our strengths, business, life, personal, professional, whatever, it will be that much better. So really just going through and identifying what some of your strengths are so that you can make sure you're operating in this. So one of your strengths, not an extremist, and will be supportive of team efforts. And that has everything to do with your chameleon. Patient in working with others on a team and demonstrating appropriate methods for completing a project with attention to details. So unlike lions, I'll give you an example. Kendall, my dad, he's like 99% lion. So we could be working on something and I'm 57% lion, but I'm 62% turtle. So sometimes my attention to detail and like my structure and everything kicks in. So we could be working on something. I'm like, no, we need to do this to kind of keep it in order. And he's like, nah, just do this. And I'm like, no, we need to break it down, make sure everything has detail to it. And so I'm a little bit more patient when it comes to working with other people. And he's more like results, task, get it done. So really just knowing that you have that strength is you having patience to deal with other people, because everyone who you work with is not going to be a lion. Everyone who you work with is not going to be detail oriented. Everybody who you work with is not going to be you. So that's actually a gift, having patience to work with other people.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent, considerate, and analytic listening style. That has everything to do with your chameleon and turtle. Strong guardian of high quality control standards and procedures. That's definitely a turtle. So really just going back through these and understanding what your strengths are.
Okay.
And then page 17. So areas for continual improvement. It's a fancy way for saying weaknesses. This page is really great because it helps us identify the areas that we're not too strong in, and then gives us an opportunity to increase in those areas. So with this page, it's a self-led exercise. I normally have people go through these, and then we'll go through we'll go through one of these so you can kind of see, and then over a period of 8 months, we should be able to improve in some of these areas. So if you look at this page, what are the top 3 weaknesses of yours that you see? Top 3.
Okay, so number 1, maybe perceived by others as private, guarded, shy, undemonstrative, may spend more time than necessary in preparing your case, and then could warm up a bit more when meeting new people. So
Okay.
those 3.
All right. So what we'll do is, so for the first 3 months, I want you to focus on those 3, but we'll walk through let's walk through the could warm up a bit more when meeting new people or talking with those not intimately involved in your immediate work. Okay, so what I want you to do is think about a time where this happened. So maybe you went somewhere and you kind of just stayed to yourself. You didn't really talk to anybody, just the people that you knew. Can you think of a time? Or is that like every time?
Like a lot of times. I mean, it just depends. Like I know how to turn it on and off, but it needs to be more on for what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So yes, I can think about several times. Yes.
Okay. All right. So what you're going to do for all of these is you're going to think of a time where this happened, and then I want you to think about what you did. So maybe there was a time where there was a let's just say luncheon, and you went and you really didn't talk to anybody, maybe 1 or 2 people who you knew. What you did, maybe you sat there and you ate and listened to the speaker, and you didn't really mingle with people. So think about the time, then think about what you did, and then think about what you could have done differently. So maybe you could have bought your coaching and speaking business cards and went around and gave out a few business cards to each table and say, hey, ladies, do you pronounce it Tramika?
Yes.
Okay. Hey, ladies, I'm Tramika, coach speaker. I talk about X, Y, and Z. You know, I just wanted to come over and introduce myself and give you my card. It's very hard, especially if you're not a flamingo, but pushing yourself to do it is really good. So I used to be the same way, actually. I was a people person, but very shy to go and introduce myself to people, to ask for something, like, or to tell people what I do. And when I was younger, I was interning, and one of my mentors asked me something that I wanted to learn. And I was like, well, I want to be a better communicator or networker when it comes to being out in public and actually sharing the things that I do. And so she took a note down, and maybe a few months later, she contacted me and said, hey, I need you to go to this event for the nonprofit. We have to get in contact with, it was 3 people she gave me. She was like, I need you to get their contact information and set up a meeting. And she was like, I'm not going to be able to make it because I have another event. And oh my God, my chest dropped down, and I was like, I don't want to go talk to them. And so I went, and it literally took me the whole event to get up and go talk to the people who I needed to talk to. I waited to the very last minute. But I did it, and it was okay. And then I called her, and I was like, okay, I got the information for these people. And I asked her how the other event went. And she was like, oh, I didn't go. I really just wanted you to, learn how to network and do everything. And I was like, oh, okay. So it was very helpful. So really just getting in your mind that they're just people. That was something I had to do. Like, they're just people. They're like me. They're humans. They have something that they do. I have something that I do. Let me just talk to them. So
yeah, I think for me, like, I'm not shy, but I don't know how to small talk. So it's either because I'm so task oriented. So if I have business with you, then okay, let's talk about business. Let's get the job done. But if I don't, then it's like, why are we talking?
Yeah.
So that's that type of thing. So I'm trying. I'm trying to grow out of it.
Yeah. So think about the time, what you did, what you could have done differently. So we just talked about maybe going to give out your business cards. And then after that, think about 1 to 2 things that you could do to improve in that area. So it might be you coming out of your comfort zone and finding a networking event in your area, like on Eventbrite, and going by yourself, literally just going by yourself, seeing what the event is about, and make it a goal to talk to 1 to 2 people while you're there. Something like that.
Okay.
And so you're going to do that for each one. So for that one, the first one, and then the third one that you talked about. So for the first 3 months, I want you to focus on 1 per month. And then after those top 3, months 4 through 8 will be each other bullet point. And by the end of 8 months, you should have improved in each one of these areas.
Okay.
All right. And then page 19. So this one is actually one of the most important pages on here, communication. I think it's so important that we know what our communication style is. That way, when it comes to communicating with others, it's not a hard thing to do. There's less communication errors, less disputes, less everything when you know what your communication style is. And then you're able to help other people know what your communication style is. So I like to equate this to the 5 love languages. Have you heard of the 5 love languages? Okay. What's your love language?
Mine's is gifts and words of affirmation.
Okay. So let's just say yours is gifts and words of affirmation, and your husband's is, let's say, quality time. So he wants to spend time all the time, but you're not necessarily a quality time person. You mainly just want him to say, okay, love you, proud of you, like, let me help you get your speaking engagement together, like, let's work on this, comes home, brings you gifts or whatever. You don't necessarily need like quality time all the time. And so he doesn't do any words of affirmation, and he doesn't bring gifts home. So now you're at a point where you may feel abandoned sometimes, or not necessarily loved how you think you want to be loved, or how you know you want to be loved. So then there's a breakdown in the love communication there, because you're not being loved based off of your love language. It's the same thing with regular communication. When people aren't communicating with us based off of your communication style, it's that much harder for you to communicate with them. So there's going to be barriers in communication, and there's going to be a breakdown in communication. So this page is all about figuring out what our communication style is, and then what we can do to make sure we're giving our best when it comes to communication. And then also making sure we're sharing with other people why our communication style is the way it is, what it is. So that way they're able to meet you where you are. So a couple things to effectively communicate with you. Be accurate and realistic. Don't overinflate ideas or outcomes. So you're not a fluff person. So you don't want to talk about fluff. You don't want to,
That's that small talk stuff.
Yeah, that you're not with. So that's one of your communication styles. So maybe, let's see, maybe you're in an argument. Maybe you and your husband are having a disagreement, and he's kind of like fussing up everything, and you're just like, okay, I don't want to hear all this fluff. Just tell me, what it is, what it's going to be, all that. And so you being able to communicate that to him is basically saying, hey, when this happens, I really prefer us to just be accurate, not beat around the bush or do this. And it could be with anybody, children or friends or whatever, but being able to vocalize how you are, that way it doesn't happen in arguments, and then you can kind of prevent arguments. So it's like, get it done, this is what it is, let's not beat around the bush about it. Keep on task with the business agenda, and that's kind of like small talk. So maybe when you're negotiating rates for a speaking engagement or something, and they're all over the place talking about, well, we have this going on, another speaker is coming in. It's kind of like, yeah, let's just stay on task for, this proposal that we have in front of us. So just making sure that you're regulating that. Take your time to be precise and thorough, and that's definitely the turtle in you. So you want people to give you detailed instructions and flush out their ideas or whatever it is that's going on. And then things to avoid to effectively communicate with you. Don't make decisions for others. So do you typically not like people to make decisions for you? You prefer to make your own? Oh, yeah. So that, don't be domineering or demanding. So sometimes as chameleons or turtles, you may feel some type of way if a lion is too aggressive and telling you what to do in a very abrupt or blunt way. So this is basically saying, if you're in a situation with someone, and it could very well be a lion, allowing them to understand that don't talk at me, like talk with me, like, let's do something more like that, versus like saying you need to do this or you need to do that. If you disagree, don't let it reflect on others personally, and don't let it affect the relationship. So if you're in a disagreement with someone, you prefer it be a disagreement about the topic and not necessarily bringing emotions into it. That way the relationship doesn't mess up. So all of these are really good. They're specific to you. So there's no right or wrong. It's just how you are as a communicator, what you prefer and what you don't prefer. So I always tell people for this page, if you're in a disagreement or something with someone who you're very close to, bringing this page up and allowing them to see or understand what your communication style is always a great thing, because it'll decrease the disagreements and being able to see other people's point of view from your side. So that's that. Any questions on the communication page?
No.
Okay. And then these last few pages, page 20 through 22, these are self-led exercises, so you can kind of go back through and answer these questions now that you have a better understanding of the animals and how they relate to DISC, and then how they can help you be more effective in your life, how they're relevant, and then just certain behavioral styles that you can improve on. So these would be really good for you to go back through and do these pages.
Okay.
All right. I know we kind of went through that pretty fast, but any questions on the assessment overall? Nope. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Okay, good. All right. Well, if you have any other questions, feel free to just shoot me an email and I can get back to you.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
All right. No problem. Have a good day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.